Welcome back to another episode of Straight Facts. I'm joined today for the first time in Terrace history by Chelsea legend Younes Talks Football's here. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you for having me. Yeah, first time. Weirdly enough, we were talking about this, a few minutes ago. Weird, but here it is. Here it
I
is.
know.
Glad to be on.
And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's good to leave things. I don't know how long you've been around, about as long as me, 7-8 years or so doing this now. It's
on YouTube, yeah.
On YouTube. It's been. I started off doing stuff like Channel 5 and the news stuff, and then Full-Time Devils came along, and then it's crazy how
Full-Time Devils, bloody hell.
I know the original cast as well. Like, well, a lot of them are still there, to be fair, but the world's different. Comment here straight away says Algeria stand up. Not a good week footballing wise for Algeria, to be fair, but not to rub salt into the wounds, my guy.
It's been. I mean, I'm lucky that I'm half and half, so at least I'll have England, but I wanted both there, and the way that it happened is just painful. I've never experienced a sting like that previous.
It gave me Aguero vibes.
Yeah,
as a United fan, it was like Aguero vibes for me.
Exactly that, and on top of that, now we know some questionable refereeing decisions, which just makes it even worse. So, yeah, it is what it is, though. What can we do?
No,
though, it's coming home. That's it.
Yeah, straight on to that. It's coming home. A draw today as well, which is going to be an interesting one as well. But lots to talk about today on the podcast because big Chelsea process tomorrow. The No to Ricketts campaign really picking up pace. So I want to really pick your brains and the audience, everyone watching live. Questions that you've got, get them in. Of course, we prioritize our member chats and our super chats that come in here. Any questions that you've got, we want to pose across. We're going to talk about that, the future of Chelsea Football Club. Big rumor today about Lukaku, maybe on his way back to Inter Milan in the summer. I wanted to get your take on him and sort of all things Chelsea on the field side of things. Then take a look at the title race. I think the title race is gearing up. It's going to be exciting this weekend. And I really wanted to speak about Garrett. I mean, the Overlap's a great show. We all love the Overlap. Have you been in the crowd in the Overlap? I swear I've seen you in the crowd.
No, not yet.
I know Carefree's been on there. I thought, do you know what? I see loads of faces I recognize. And I'm like, have you been there? Have you been there? But obviously some scathing comments about Manchester City that he kind of came out with. So we're going to delve into all of that on the show and get that done. A super chat straight away here from Houseboat says, yes, Younes, big love, my guy. Yeah, a lot of people excited that you were coming on the terrace before. I've had a lot of messages about it since I tweeted the other day. But yeah, look, the Ricketts campaign protest tomorrow, as we can see here. I know that you've been one of the big voice behind it. Matisse, Cons, lots of big prominent Chelsea fans across social media are out here pushing this, supporting it. Give us a bit of a lowdown of what it's about and what you're trying to achieve.
So I mean, right now it's just a case of making the voice clear now that a majority of Chelsea supporters, and I don't want to say all because it's not all. There is some people that are just, they're happy to see the Ricketts, and this is where I went. You know what? For you tomorrow, it's Saturday, and it's Chelsea versus Brentford, and that's it. But there's a big portion of Chelsea fans that don't want the Ricketts, not even taking over the club, but being in contention for this, because now we've seen and we've managed to hear what has gone down the last few days. The processing behind the scenes, what's going on. It just seems like that there's the process right now doesn't seem like it's completely fair. We already know that the Rain Group that are in charge of the sale of Chelsea Football Club have already had a previous acquisition with the Ricketts. They've obviously allowed them to get through the process quite quickly. There was a whole thing about whether the Ricketts were even going to make the shortlist, and that is where the outrage came from. And they did very easily. Not only that, but now we know that a certain rule has allegedly been broken, where Bruce Buck had brokered a meeting between the Ricketts and Paul Canaville. Now, some would look at that and go, there's no problem with that. But all bidders were informed from the March of 1st that there should be no contact with any executive at Chelsea up until, I believe, next week. And that's clearly been broken. And it's like, okay, well, why are they getting this preferential treatment? What's going on? Not only just with the Rain Group, who we already know have previous, and there's history there, but Bruce Buck, the chairman. This is where we look back, because when the Super League was about to be launched, it was Bruce Buck that put Chelsea in that position. It was him that steered the club to take part in it and go, yeah, you know what, we'll be one of the members. Now we're hearing this about Bruce Buck again. And it's just like, okay, no, we can't do this. If the outrage online and what people have been saying isn't enough to prevent them from getting onto the shortlist for many reasons, whether it's their previous comments and their remarks, whether it's their sporting acumen with the Chicago Cubs, whether it's the way they manage their finances in the United States. There's many avenues you can go down. They still made the shortlist. So now it's like, okay, now in terms of the outrage we've heard from some of the other bidders, from many other people, it's clear that right now the favorites are the Ricketts. And if no one says anything, they're going to get the club. So tomorrow is a case of, look, we're going to have to protest and see if it works out that way instead.
And you know what? One of my questions for you was like, what if? And we'll kind of get onto that. But the preferential treatment is interesting because I've kind of followed this story, but nowhere near as close as a Chelsea fan would, because I care, but I don't care like you care. You know, it's your club. You know, it's the future. And I've, from day one, I've been very happy to see Chelsea fans stand up against this. And actually, do you know what? We don't want owners like this, irrespective of how good or bad they're going to run the club. The crazy thing about this is, though, I would understand a huge conflict in some Chelsea fans' minds, the board's mind, if they run sports clubs amazingly, but there was these problems with their morality in the past, the emails, etc. Because you're in that space of, look, the dad's done this, and yes, they're part of the Republican Party, barring the sister, who I think is part of the Democrats. But like, there's things we don't want, but they do run clubs brilliantly. The fact they run clubs poorly and the moral standpoint looks terrible. Yeah, I said this on a few of my streams, and quite a few Chelsea supporters that watch me were like, "No, I think you're just sort of trying to scare us." But I'm starting to veer away from what the media say, that Todd Bowley's a favourite, and think the Ricketts have to be, because, and you hit the nail on the head, if they weren't in major contention, what's the point of brokering the conversation with Cannavale? What is the point of even being on the shortlist? There's no mileage in upsetting you as fans if they're not considering allowing them to buy the football club. And that's why I think these protests are key. I think it's absolutely brilliant that yourselves have all been pushing this. And now I'm going to do my bit on the Terrace to kind of promote it and, you know, say to fans, get down there. Football fans in general, if you can, get down there, because owners like this, for me, are completely unwelcome in the Premier League. Even if those emails didn't exist, even if they weren't connected to political elements that people don't like, the way they run football clubs, I don't want to see any football club in England run like that, even if you're a rival. You know, Chelsea going backwards under this, is that a good thing for me as a United fan? Yeah. But on a moral standpoint, I can't stand seeing these owners in our football clubs. I just can't. It doesn't. These clubs were built, you know, 100 to 150 years ago by the working class people in their communities, and they don't deserve to be treated like this. And the crazy thing is, yes, there's smudges next to Roman and Sheikh Mansour and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia in terms of their ownership. But at least they run those clubs well and take care of the local areas and communities. Now, I'm not saying that makes up for things that they've done or what their nation does. That's a very separate conversation. The problem is with these American owners is they've done some really bad and shady things as well. Plus, they generally run the clubs like shit. So it's double bubble for me. That's, as an outsider looking in, that's how it feels to me.
Yeah, completely. At least, you know, with the Ricketts, it's crazy because when I hear a few people say, you know, I'll just give them the chance, see what happens. Well, that's too late. You know, at that point, we'll be in the situation where Arsenal are the Kroenkes. Try and force him to sell. You know, it's his decision at the end of the day. He doesn't have to. Or the Glazers getting rid of United. The damage is done. You know, you're going to have to just hope that they leave. They just sell the club and pack their things and leave. We want to prevent that. You know, in terms of looking at the options that we have on the table right now, the Ricketts would technically be the best if you're just talking money. Just money that's available. Yeah, you'd want the Ricketts. But we don't want the Ricketts, especially when you go back in terms of previous. You look at just in the way that they've run the Chicago Cubs, for example, and the way that the Chicago Cubs fans talk about that the way their baseball club has been run. It's all money. And the incentive was there from the beginning with the Ricketts when they acquired the Chicago Cubs in terms of just using them to just make money. Now, I'm not saying making money is a bad thing. No, of course, anyone that's going to come in and buy the club wants to make money. But as you said, in terms of developing and taking the club forward, that needs to be protected in the same way that Roman was able to invest and allow the club to flourish, not just in terms of the men's team, but the women's team, the academy, the resources, the training ground, the facilities, all of that. And now we're talking about redevelopment of Stamford Bridge. That all needs to be taken into context. We don't want someone to just come in, look at the balance sheets and go, all right, we're in the green. Screw the performances. Don't care. Whereas Todd Bowley, for example, another American sports owner, but even though he's part owners of the Dodgers, you look at the way that the Dodgers are run and you look at the way that they're reinforced and the resources that they have. They're one of the best in the United States. In terms of him previously talking about acquiring a Premier League club in the future, he outlined what he would like to do if the opportunity came along. He tried to buy Chelsea 4 years ago. Didn't work out because Roman didn't want to sell. Now he's back. You're looking at that and going, yeah, okay, you're an American sports owner, but right now you make a lot more sense than the Ricketts. And that's where, 2 weeks ago, there was the rumor that by today or by tomorrow, we play Brentford tomorrow. The sell should have been done. We should have a new owner in place ready to take the club. We don't have that. Why? Because all this Ricketts stuff has now kicked off. And it's like, there's the delay. And that's where it's like, okay, we need to try and cut this off and stop this from getting any further. So,
what do you feel will be, and I agree with you on that, by the way, it's the more you look at it, they've probably got a preferred person if it isn't the Ricketts. Otherwise, why try and finesse them in? Yeah. I did see a tweet, and you may know more about this, and I haven't reached out to him, but I saw Matisse tweet that he kind of reached out to supporters clubs, and I think his tweet said, but it was to no avail. And I don't know whether that's because they've ignored him. As a United fan, what I've seen in the past is the official supporters clubs often don't like content creators. For some reason, they have and I'm not sure if it's the same at Chelsea, but I get the feeling it is. I sometimes feel it's because they used to be the most famous fans, and now there's new famous fans, and they get their noses are out of joint, which is weird. But I kind of get this feeling that and I go back to Cannavale's comment. Now I know he's come out and said I haven't endorsed the signing, the takeover.
Yeah.
But what I read was a week ago he said, I give this, I don't want it, and I give it a big fat anti-racism no. And then his comments after meeting them was they've kind of sort of eased my fears and concerns. My fear is if the supporters clubs come out with comments like that, so if the supporters trust and this big supporters club and this prominent group says we've had meetings and we don't feel as stressed about it anymore, I feel like that's almost curtains. That's almost a case of that would give the board the green light to push on ahead, if that makes sense. And that's why this protest, I think, is very, very key. If they were to take over, the Chelsea fans are dead set against it. Do you see Chelsea fans turning their back on the club? Do you see them continuing the protest? Like, what do you think the reaction? Could there be a break-off club like FC United? Like, are there any talks like that amongst Chelsea fans at all?
No, I mean, the only that I've heard at the moment is obviously, and this goes to some of the other lads that have helped to organize all of this. If it were to happen, right, and they take over the club, well, down the line, if anything happens, don't come running to us and complaining, these owners aren't fit for purpose. We try to tell you, that's it. And if it works out, if somehow it works out, because you never know, at the end of the day, you never know. Great. As simple as that. Yeah, but if we end up in a situation where Arsenal fans have ended up going, we need to get the Kroenkes out, or United fans have ended up going, we need to get the Glazers out. We end up with a situation where we go, we need to get the Ricketts out. Our conscience is at peace because we tried to stop this before it even was a thing. So that's the only thing that I've heard so far. In terms of anything going forward from that, it would have to be a case of just waiting to see how the club is run. But in terms of the official groups, the Supporters Trust, for example, you can see that a lot of them seem to be on the fence with it because they're trying to be careful. And I can get that. With the Supporters Trust, what's encouraging today, an email was sent out to all members of the Supporters Trust. Obviously, me being one of them, there's thousands. They put out a survey asking everyone to fill in the survey. Your thoughts on the Ricketts. Give us your honest opinion. We want to know exactly how everyone's feeling. So that's encouraging. If they're going to take all of that information and put it forth, then great. We Are the Shed as well, who at first put out a statement a couple of days ago saying, and they're the ones, by the way, who are in charge of the banners at Stamford Bridge. So all the banners you see at the bridge, that's them who make them and display them. They're a fan group. They came out with a statement going, okay, the Ricketts need to make themselves clear. Are you against bigotry or are you against the club? You're going to have to pick one. They got a bit of criticism for that. They've been in touch. And I know Matisse has been in touch with them. And they have multiple members of different opinions. So it's hard to just generalize the entire group, but they have made a banner. It will be at the bridge for tomorrow's game saying no to Ricketts. So I think their stance now, hopefully, is pretty clear.
Yeah.
So that's encouraging. But going forward, yeah, for now, we just have to work on this protest, see how it all works out and what arises from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, as you say, it's just stage one. Let's see what stage 2, stage 3 looks like. And fingers crossed they don't get, like, on a neutral level. I hope they don't take over. There is this part of me as a Man United fan and someone who kind of likes to play devil's advocate, is almost, if it happens, I'm so intrigued to see what it looks like in terms of, because I've seen some people tweets, Chelsea fans I know, I will walk away from the club. I don't believe them. Be honest, I don't, because and one of the reasons why I've never really condemned Roman, never really no matter what nation owners are from, the reason I don't go out with a sledgehammer and like condemn it, especially on social media, especially making content, is because I don't know who the Man United's next owners are going to be. I don't know the controversies that could come out from the Glazers. If I start making these moral stances that you should all stop supporting your club and walk away, I make a rod for my own back one day of my own club. And the point is, I know that it would take almost nothing would make me walk away from Man United. So I just don't want to put myself, and that's for me as an individual. I'm never going to call for fans to do that to their own club, because I wouldn't do it to Man United. I don't think it's a fair claim to make, but I am intrigued to see what kind of happens with this. I truly, truly am. Viewers, any questions that you've got for Younes around the takeover, around the protest, feel free to send them in and to have your say. A lot of love for you, to be fair. Carl here is a Liverpool fan. Says the Ricketts are morally corrupt, but they do run decent clubs. They broke the curse of 100 years for the Cubs. Their issue is they lost the GM Theo Epstein. That's what Carl thinks. I mean, most Cubs supporters don't like him.
Yeah. I mean, that's the vibe that I got anyway. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I watch baseball religiously. I don't. But yeah, the multiple videos that I've managed to do on it, and I've seen people come in with comments who follow Chelsea and follow the MLB. Some of them Cubs fans are saying, yeah, you know what? Look, they've wrecked one of my clubs already. I don't want them to wreck this one. So yeah, in general, I've seen Cub fans hate the Ricketts. And again, in terms of all of this, I don't want it to be a case of political stances, all of that, because I've seen the Ricketts, for example, get criticized because they're Republican. Like, okay, that's personally me, I don't have an issue with that. You know, in terms of like if someone here is a conservative or Labour supporter, I don't care. And everyone's political affiliation is that. On a sporting level, the Cubs, for example, and what they've done historically there, on a financial level, the way that they manage their finances, their declaration when they took over the Cubs in terms of making it just money first and that's it. Those are issues that I think is sufficient enough for them to not come into Chelsea Football Club on a moral standpoint, you know, and then you get other moral issues on top of that. So yeah, for the Cubs and the way that they've been run, the majority I've heard on a sporting level is that they're just not running that club properly. And there are issues within the Cubs related, for example, to the need to look more into this, but in terms of the way that the disability, the disabled fans, in terms of seating, in terms of logistics, all of that, there's an issue there. In terms of the stadium redevelopment, Ringley Fields, and the saga behind that, we just don't need the drama. We don't need all of that drama.
I agree. I was actually I went to a Cubs game actually a couple of years ago when I was in the States. Yeah, I mean, again, you would never know going as a tourist to watch a game that there was problems there. The weirdest thing I learned on the day is that, you know, monkey nuts that you crack and eat the nut out of.
Yeah.
People in the crowd you eat the shells of them as well, you know.
Really?
The guy next to me was doing it and I was proper staring at him. You're right. And I said, I'm really sorry. I'm not from around here, as you can tell by the voice. I said, why are you eating the shell? He said, it's beautiful. Try it. It was. They're really nice. They're like a nice salty texture. I was like, oh, wow. Like, you know, it's the weirdest thing to learn. I mean, I didn't really learn anything about baseball. Didn't really enjoy.
You learn about nuts.
About nuts. The weirdest thing is, though, about baseball, half the crowd leaves before the end because it's so long. It's such a strange sport.
It's a long game, yeah.
It is proper long. Carl here says they do spend money with 130 million players on the payroll. 130 million player payroll. The incentive in baseball is to have low payroll, winning no correlation or causation to spending in baseball. Do you know what, Carl? I'm not going to overly disagree with you because I don't understand the contracts of the sport. I'm just going by what I've read and seen from Cubs fans. Like it's anecdotal, but I haven't seen. What we haven't seen is like a big protests from Cubs fans saying, how dare the British press say this about our owners or the Chelsea fans? They are brilliant. I haven't seen that. If that came out and they were on TV, on camera, sending letters saying this is a disgrace, they're amazing, I might change my mind, but no one said shit. Terry and Younes, two of my favorite YouTubers on one show. Just tuned in, taking a break from work to listen. Younes, will you still do a watch along?
I don't think so. Not tomorrow, but it'll be the only one that I'm missing because I'm going to be there myself. So there will be a match review because I will keep up with the game, but no watch along for tomorrow. And I'm yet to announce that. So later on in my preview, I'll make sure I let people know.
I love comments like this. Thank you, Emmanuel. It says, Terry, you're lying. It was just one person. I mean, it's not everyone in the crowd was eating the shells. I'm saying I saw a number of people doing it. Like, oh God, some of you take us so seriously. It's a madness. In terms of Chelsea tomorrow, though, before we move on to some other subjects, obviously an important game to a degree. You're kind of safe. You're not going to win the league. You're not going to fall out the top four. Is this kind of more now just keeping everybody fit and ticking over for the FA Cup and Champions League? Is that how you Chelsea fans are seeing it, or not so much?
That's an interesting way to look at it. Personally, that's not a way that I've looked at it, but it would make sense if Thomas Tuchel did go down that route. Because personally, look, I mean, yeah, we haven't assured top four yet. Technically, I think we will be getting third, but at the same time, personally, I'd look at it and go, you know what? Have a go, have a dig. You know, you got nothing to lose in terms of Liverpool, Man City above us, who aren't that far off now. You know, we've got a game in hand, so we can catch up a little bit, and then they've got to play each other. See what happens. You know, you got nothing to lose. So there is that, but priority for sure is the FA Cup semi-final, Champions League quarter-final against Real Madrid. I mean, if we retain the Champions League, it would be stupid. So that is something we definitely want to try and do. So yeah, in terms of tomorrow, realistically, we should be getting a win. I think it's a case of managing the team really well to make sure there's no injuries, make sure that everyone is okay, get that result, move on, and then we've got Real Madrid to focus on. So, I think it is a case of injury management, but give it a go and see how far we can get in the Premier League. At least if we keep third, we'll be happy.
Yeah, and of course, I think as well, you want to maintain confidence going into the Cup games and the Champions League games. The Champions League is a mad one, though, because you could be the first Premier League team to go back-to-back. First English team, I think, since, I want to say Nottingham Forest. Forest. Yeah. Which, to some kids listening, Nottingham Forest used to be a powerhouse in European football. As a United fan, I'm really scared about you winning. I'd almost prefer Liverpool to win a 7th than for you to win your 3rd, because I believe this, and it pains me to say, if you win your 3rd this year and do a back-to-back, have 3 Champions Leagues, plus with all your other European success, your pedigree in Europe is bigger than Man United's.
It is, yeah. Which, I mean, right now you've got 1 more Champions League, so if we equal it, we will have more in total.
Yeah, exactly. But doing the back-to-back as well, though, it's an achievement. Again, it's an achievement. I'm not even sure if Liverpool went back-to-back. They may have done. I don't know if they did. I've never bothered to research it, to be fair, but it's to do it as the first Premier League team to do it anyway would just be phenomenal. And it's
in these circumstances as well. You know,
I know.
That's what makes it sweet.
I mean, it'd be crazy if you did it now, because everybody kind of felt that you guys would drop off and collapse a little bit when this happened. And I did do it back to back. They did it in 77 and 78. So yeah, they did go back to back. I just checked there. So Liverpool have done it. I know Forest have done it. Yeah. But to be the first Premier League team to do it first, I mean, as well, and it pushes you so much further clear of Arsenal in terms of European success as well. Like, there's so many benefits, not just winning the trophy, but history that comes with it. And considering what fans sung to you guys for like the first 10 years of Roman, that, you know, shit club, no history, to win a 3rd and just essentially become the 2nd most successful team in Europe in English football history would just be an amazing achievement.
It'd be unbelievable. In terms of the last 20 years or so, I mean, down the line, that's going to be cemented. So, yeah, I mean, even right now, the way that things are happening, what's going on, all the chaos that we've been in. I mean, it's mad. I've been talking to some of the other guys, and it's crazy how Chelsea operate in chaos. You know, when there's things going crazy around us, we play well. I don't know why. We win trophies. So it wouldn't surprise me, 100% if we were to win it. But it's a hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to do, especially back to back. It's not been done by a Premier League side. So, yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens.
I hear you there. This year says my favorite football channel and my favorite Chelsea YouTuber. What a dream. Appreciate the compliments there, my friend. Thank you very much indeed. Comment here from Brooks with the super chat says, how can you use the Cubs as an example if you don't know anything about them? A lot of Chelsea fans are making excuses for the Ricketts just because they would rather be bankrolled by Saudis, is what Brooks thinks.
I mean, to be honest, look, it's a comment where I get the direction it's coming from. But in terms of the Cubs, it's not us that are trying to reference the Cubs. It's Cubs fans that have outlined their outrage at the way that it's all being run. And we're using that because that's who the Ricketts own. In comparison with a Todd Boehly, for example, who's in the running, who part owns the Dodgers, who are functioning brilliantly. And not just in terms of success, but the way that they invest, the way that they've pumped in terms of trying to use youth to try and get a proper academy going, which is something that we in the last few years have really turned our attentions to, and we want to keep that going. We want more Reece James and more Mounts and more, all sorts that are coming out from the academy. Todd Boehly, for example, has already come out and expressed how important that is and how it's key to spend correctly, not just splash the cash for the sake of it. So whoever were to come in, that is what we would want. So that's exactly it. With the Ricketts, I think we're all just pretty convinced we won't get that. So
yeah, no, I hear you on that completely. There was a story circulating today about a certain Lukaku. And I want to read the quote out here from this is from I can never pronounce them because my ability to read, I'm dyslexic as it is. Reading a foreign language is even harder. But a verified Italian outlet have stated that Chelsea striker Lukaku will try and push for a return to Inter Milan this summer. The Belgium is not settled to life again at Stamford Bridge and is looking at a quick exit. Whether or not that rumor is true or not at this point, like, what's the feeling as yourself as a Chelsea fan and your sort of Chelsea community across socials towards Lukaku? Is it someone that you feel should be given another season and the club should push to give him another year? Or do you feel as if after the interview, the lack of goals, and still not quite the cohesion up front when he plays as you would all want, do you feel that maybe a quick exit and looking elsewhere would be the best option?
Nah, he's personally, my opinion, and I think many have begun to share the same sort of sentiment. He's got to go. It's as simple as that. I don't mean that in a bad way towards him personally, but it just doesn't work. And I think we were all, including me, we all got it wrong. We all got it wrong because when the rumors started, obviously there was a link of Erling Haaland. And we knew that wasn't going to happen. So, okay, turn to the next guy. Who's the next guy? Lukaku. Sweet. Bring him to the club. We need a striker. All of us were calling him the final piece of the puzzle. If we have one striker who's going to bang in goals, that's it. We're unstoppable. Now we know, at least from a tactical point of view, it just doesn't work. It just don't work. The attributes, the scouting behind Lukaku coming to Chelsea wasn't done correctly. And yeah, I think it was just a case of get Tuchel a striker, just get a striker in. And he was the biggest name available. Plus with history, it's sentiments, it, clutches onto heartstrings. He's coming back. He's a man now, not a boy, all of that. And it was nice up until the interview. And that's where it went sour, because from the interview, it's true that comment says it all. It's true from the interview. It was a case of, okay, so what are your true intentions here? You just, were Chelsea your only option? Is it a case of you turned down everyone else, or you had to not go to anyone else because, okay, Chelsea are now the only option on the table, I've got to pick them, I guess. It's just the whole thing just went sour. And even now, in terms of the way he's used, the way that he moves, it just doesn't fit with what Tuchel's trying to do. Whereas a Kai Havertz, for example, who's not even an in-and-out striker, is clicking, and it's clicking wonderfully. So yeah, Lukaku for me, he's got to go. Even if it's a case of we're not going to make that money back, fair enough. I mean, the one blessing in disguise with a new owner coming in is that they don't have to cut any loss. For them, it's a clean slate. They found Lukaku at the club. They can generate 50 million from him if they want. No problem. So yeah. And not just him. We have Deadwood in the squad that needs to be sorted out. But yeah, Lukaku, not saying he's a terrible striker. I don't think he's a terrible striker. He just doesn't fit. With the way that we play, he just doesn't fit.
Yeah, I agree. I think with him, when I look at him, it's a player that, if I use a real life analogy, he was in a really good relationship where he was happy, he was settled, he was being loved, cared for, and he loved and cared about the other person. And then visually, his dream woman came along, whether it be Michelle Keegan or Beyonce or Rihanna, they turned his head, and he almost got this, the grass will be greener on the other side. But he's got with that person. He's now seen their flaws and his flaws. And it's like, this doesn't work. And it's like, I want to go back. I want to get back my ex. That's what it feels like to me. Almost, I've made a mistake in leaving and I want to go back to where I was. And he's a good striker. He's a very good striker. His goal scoring return in his career is phenomenal. But when I see you guys play without him, and as you say, Kai Havertz in the middle, you're just a different animal and team. And look, he's still got improvements to make. But I think overall, as a football player, he's better than Lukaku. Not as a finisher, because Lukaku is elite at that. But I think he's better. And you have got other deadwood to get rid of. But at least some other players that Chelsea fans don't want. I use Alonso as an example. At least he's professional. At least he works hard. At least he's a good person to have in that group environment, where with Lukaku, the longer he stays, I think the more poisonous that situation could become. And he's got history of being like that. And I think that Chelsea, with everything you've got going on, you will have new owners, new processes. I think the last thing you need is a disgruntled superstar like Lukaku as part of your team going into next year, which is going to be a very, very big year for your manager, because it's like, again, new world as well. We don't quite know the new expectations, but as he goes into his second full season, the expectation on challenging for that league title will increase further for him, more than likely. And you just don't need passengers like Lukaku for me. I think if I was a Chelsea fan, I'd be hoping that this rumor is true and that he moves on. Who would be like your ideal player to come in and replace him?
It's a tough one, because right now we've got ourselves a little bit of a situation where it needs to be given attention. We've got Broja on loan at Southampton, and he's someone that, I mean, if he weren't there, I think we'd be dipping straight into the transfer market. But we want to try and get a striker in who is dynamic, who moves quickly, who has that pace, who's got that strength, who can finish. I mean, right now, for example, with a Lukaku, too slow, too hesitant in terms of the first touch. It's just not there. And the way we play our football, we need that. That's important. Broja on loan at Southampton is showing all of those signs. Plus, in the Premier League, that's one, point that's really important to us. That means he can come into the Chelsea team and know exactly what to expect. Mm-hmm. So we look at Broja, who's doing really well, and we go, you know what? Maybe he might be given the opportunity. If we were to go with him and Kai Havertz to complement each other, maybe that will be enough. He deserves a chance. So I think going into next season, potentially give him the opportunity, and then we can see him go from there. But in terms of elsewhere and a striker elsewhere, I mean, people would say Erling Haaland. I personally, I'm a bit half and half on Haaland now, because I look at Haaland and I think, yeah, you're a monster, you're a beast. But I've got PTSD from Bundesliga now, so I can't get rid of it.
Mate, I hear you on that. Look, I think as well, Haaland's going to go City or Real Madrid, in my opinion.
One of them as well, yeah.
Harry Kane, listen, I actually think if you get a striker, I know it's hard to do business between your two clubs, but Harry Kane would actually be perfect for Chelsea. Harry Kane would be perfect for Chelsea right now, and he'd be perfect for Arsenal. The irony is, it's probably the two most unlikely clubs to do business with Tottenham. But I think you're right. It may be better off investing money in other positions and giving Broja a chance, because all the other strikers out there, whether it's Younes that everyone talks about, or Davids, Isak, I think I look at Broja and think, how much better really are those players than him? I've not watched any of them play and gone, you are light years ahead of this young man who will cost you nothing, and you can invest money elsewhere. And if that don't work, you try and sign one of them later. But yeah, I think you've got that option. Obviously, you've got Gallagher coming back, who's going to help the midfield next year. Those two have been excellent this season. And, Chelsea's academy is just it's always produced good players during the Roman era, but they're starting to actually play football at the highest level. Now, they always used to, the Gal Kakutas of this world and the Josh McEachran's, they were meant to do this. They didn't quite do it. And these guys now, like the new breed are serious, absolutely serious.
No, it's true. We've always had talent, and it's always been a case of they just never get the chance, or they can't break through. Whenever one almost does, okay, he gets sent on a loan, he gets sold. See you later, and then we make money. Since that transfer ban though that we had, I think that's where everything switched, because then we were able to trust in our youth, and it took us places. Now we go, you know what? Maybe we should be using the academy a bit more. And I think that's where the ethos has shifted at Chelsea. So, long may it continue. It's the right thing to do.
No, I agree completely. We've had some more super chats come through. First of all, David says Chelsea are about to be owned by a vitamin D deficiency. It's an unfortunate name, Ricketts, isn't it? It is an unfortunate name in itself. Carl's back again, who says, and thank you very much for your super chats, Carl. He says the Dodgers are investing, but they have the biggest regional TV contract value at $10 billion for 25 years. They do get a return on investment. American owners will spend for return of investment and championships, keep Lukaku and sell Jan. Or Jan.
Who's Jan?
Who would that be? I don't know who.
On the spot.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out what player that is. I can't even think of who that should be.
I don't
know. Who is Jan? Who is Jan? Reactions online to Saudi media group highlighted Chelsea fans' real motivations. They want the most money to continue Roman's bankrolling. Nothing to do with morals. They didn't question the Saudis.
I would partially disagree. Because it was already made clear in terms of the intention and the plan. This is the thing that the Ricketts haven't really given. What's their plan? What are they going to come in and actually do? They've been silent. That Mohammed El Khareji, who was going to be the front man of that Saudi media group, actually outlined, along with a couple of others, in terms of what they would do if they were Chelsea owners. It sounded lovely. It sounded great. But now we know that the money was all on finance, and they were going to put it all out from a loan. So we would actually be in debt, which is why they weren't on the shortlist. So
yeah, and that makes sense now. It comes. I think as well, though, what I would say about the Saudi media group is I'm pretty sure when they did the due diligence, one of the now there was no financial backers because it was coming from banks. Or it all depends who that lending from as well. Because again, in Saudi Arabia, if it's from a bank, you are connected to the royal family because everything is connected to the government. Exactly. Like even in this country, if you're borrowing from the bank, every bank is underlined by the Bank of England, which is connected to the government. And again, the one advantage you have, whether people like hearing it or not, if it's UK or American based, is you're part of a national democracy. Saudi Arabia, you're not. And the one fear that I would have having Saudi owners who are not the royal family is who knows what could go on internally in that country, and suddenly your owner is now out of favor with the royal family. That would scare me because anything can happen at any moment. And we know that's the case. We've seen it before. Yeah. And, I'm nowhere near, and I'm not even an amateur when it comes to geopolitical issues, but that was just something that I read and I saw someone tweet, like, I just don't want someone who's owner, who's the dictatorship that runs a country owns a rival football club. That's scary in itself. It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, yeah, but I think if anything would have come out about them that was morally poor, Chelsea fans would have said something. But the one thing I'd say about most of the other owners, nothing's come out. So you can't have a go at Chelsea fans for not being against people that they don't know anything bad about. If it comes out tomorrow that, I don't know, Todd Bowley was a regular visitor of Epstein's Island, and I'm throwing it out that's purely hypothetical. If that came out tomorrow, I'm pretty sure you guys wouldn't want him either, right? Like,
well, yeah, we'd shift the protest and have his name included in that case. Absolutely, yeah.
It's one of them there. Emmanuel here says the hype around Broja is all good and well, but leading a Chelsea line when most of the teams will park the bus, I don't see it. Havertz also struggled.
I mean, thankfully Havertz is getting there now. It looks like that he's starting to get there. But even so, he's not an in-and-out striker. He's not meant to be. With Broja, all the signs look like they're there. We've had a Timo Werner who struggled in the low block, can only play when there's a high line. We've had a Lukaku who always plays with his back to goal. Tries to sometimes get in and around defenders, sometimes goes on the wrong run. With Broja, his movement, his pace, his speed, his understanding, his finishing, everything looks like it's there. So when you look at his performances for Southampton, even against teams that do sit low, he performs. And right now, for what we have access to, that's our best option, I reckon. So I would say he deserves the opportunity.
Yeah. There's a comment here that says Terry thinks the West are morally great, like the US ain't. Listen, my bro, I don't need to read the rest of that. I know that the US and I know that my country, the United Kingdom, Britain, England, whatever you want to refer to it as, are not these perfect little nations that have done no harm, not just historically, but in recent years. In fact, just the way my country handled lockdowns and COVID was horrendous. That isn't the point that's being raised here. I have no issue personally. Like, as I say, you go back and find the tweet where I was condemning the Saudi regime taking over at Newcastle. I didn't, because I don't get involved in that level of things. But I'm talking from a point of view of, if my club had a different Saudi group that wanted to buy us now, but the Crown Prince already owns Newcastle, I wouldn't want it. Not because I think there's something wrong with them, not because I think it's corrupt and horrible. There's just something about it that puts me off. My owner falls out with the royal family of his nation and has all these money seeds. My club's in trouble. And to say that can't happen is crazy. And that's my issue. And by the way, that's happened to Roman. The reason Roman's had to sell is because our nation has seized his stuff. So if it can happen here, it can happen there. That's all I'm stating to you. With the American owners and the British owners, as an example, European owners, them being sanctioned by their own countries is highly unlikely. Therefore, it's safer. That's the point, my friend. I'm not talking moral groundings. I'm talking actual realities. The US government sanctioning a US person and taking all their assets, highly unlikely. Yeah. Not billionaires. It might. Yeah, it's only happening if you're a shotter. If you're a local drug dealer, you'll get your assets taken. If you're a billionaire mall owner or a conglomerate or bank, no, that's my point, Morgan. It isn't about saying that the West is more moral than the Middle East or Asia or Africa or any other continent. That really isn't. Not that the West is a continent, but you get my point. It's really not that at all. So please don't interpret it that way, because you can have to be blunt with you, mate. You're so off track. It's unbelievable. Title race, though, Matt. I want to get your take on the title race. Liverpool City. What way around do you see it going, mate?
Chelsea coming in at the last minute. No, I'm kidding. Imagine though. Right now, to be honest, I have to be real. I've got a weird, sneaky feeling that Liverpool are going to nick it. And I think it's only based on the fact that City was so far ahead at one time, and now it's come down to this. So yeah, I don't know. I've just got a weird feeling that Liverpool might, on the final day, have a result that goes their way. Ultimately, that Liverpool-Man City game is going to be key, because they've still got to play each other. So that's pretty much a final. I think whoever wins that, with the amount of games left after that, pretty much has one hand on the trophy. So yeah, but my gut is telling me Liverpool, and that's just strictly my gut, because any of them can win it.
Yeah, I'm a bit like you. It's funny. I got a lot of City fans had a pop at me this morning because we had some content that came out on this, and they're like, "How dare you write us off?" I'm not writing you off. I just think Liverpool are going to win the league from this point, and Liverpool seem to have that bit between their teeth. They look so potent and so dangerous. They look fresh. Yeah. Where City have looked a little bit clunky. And again, my opinion could change in the next 2 to 3 weeks if City come back after the international break and are backfiring, and if Liverpool look clunky. The game, as you say, though, at the Etihad is huge, and I'm a big firm. But two of my users were having a exchange earlier on in my comment section, and somebody was saying how just detailing how bad Liverpool's Premier League record at the Etihad is, and this person reiterated all these crazy results over the last few decades in football. I think he put about 10, 15 results in there that weren't meant to happen. Just as right after the Euros, Switzerland weren't meant to knock France out. As an example, a couple of years ago, were Norwich meant to beat City? Probably not.
No.
And if you just go back and think about your own clubs, how many results? That one of the biggest in my mind, Chelsea, Arsenal, 2017 FA Cup final. There wasn't an Arsenal fan or pundit or journalist in the world that predicted an Arsenal win. They all said, probably barring Ty from AFTV, big up yourself. He'd predict Arsenal to beat to beat prime Barcelona if Arsenal had 5 men on the pitch. He would.
He would. He actually would. Yeah.
He would. But these results happen, and I get a feeling this is going to be one of those anomaly results that goes against the history of the recent fixture. And I think Liverpool will go to the Etihad, and I think they'll get a result. And I mean, I even think Liverpool are going to finish this weekend ahead of Man City. I think City are going to drop points against Burnley. I think they're going to get a draw. I think they'll draw that game. And it'll go from there. But yeah, Liverpool, my favourites from now. Which, by the way, City fans keep going unbiased. I'm a Man United fan. I don't want
you hate both.
I don't want Liverpool equaling our 20. I don't want Liverpool to do it. I don't want Liverpool anywhere near a quad because, like you guys becoming more potent in Europe than Man United, they win a quad. They've completed English football. No one can ever
done. Yeah,
that would be the first team ever to do a quad. Joint most league titles. By then, it'll be 7 Premier Leagues, huge amount of League Cups and FA Cups. They're almost untouchable. And people keep telling me, like, I want it. Why do I want that? I don't want it. But yeah, I look at Liverpool as being that potent team. On Liverpool, though, like, I want to chat a bit about Gary Neville as well. He kind of made this point. He predicted them to win the league as well. But he made 2 big statements during the overlap. The first one was when Klopp leaves, Liverpool will be 4th or 5th in the league. Can you see Liverpool having that kind of drop-off without Jurgen Klopp?
Honestly, no. Because I truly think that after Klopp, it's going to be Stevie G that comes in. And I think in terms of the way that Gerrard has been developing as a manager, I think he's done it spot on. You know, he's not rushed the process.
Yeah.
He's learned. He's done really well in terms of developing into a manager, becoming manager at Rangers, succeeding over there at a level that is at, you know, where he needed to be at the time. Coming into the Premier League, Aston Villa, not trying to go to the big guns yet. He's doing it the right way and he's taking the time and he's developing. And I think by the time it gets to the point where Klopp decides to call it a day, I think Liverpool would have already outlined it and have Gerrard in the pipeline ready. So I think he'll come as a ready manager. And that's just the way, that's just my opinion. That's just how I see it happen. It might not happen that way, but if they were to get Gerrard after a bit more experience, I think he might keep it going for them. So yeah, we'll see. But Klopp is special as a manager for them at the moment. So yeah.
He look, I think Gary Neville, he makes half a point, but the only way to allude to what you said, the only way his prediction comes to fruition is if their managerial appointment is wrong. Because if you take Klopp away, Alisson isn't one of the best goalies. Trent, Robertson, and Van Dijk, Matip, Konate are not some of the best defenders in the league. Some say the best in their respective positions. Without they're the same with or without Klopp. Fabinho is the same with or without Klopp. Salah is the best player in the world for me, with or without Klopp. The only way it goes wrong and they drop off, the one thing I agree with is that the top-class managers can win you an extra 12 to 15 points a season versus the average ones. You know, if Jurgen Klopp was managing Man United over the last 3 years and not Ollie, we might have won something because he could generate the better tactics, the better coaching, the mentality elements to get you over certain lines. So if they get the managerial appointment wrong, then Gary Neville's got a point. But his statement for me was too bold along the lines of irrespective. It just sounds like irrespective of who comes in, with the way FSG run the club, they're coming 4th, 4th, 5th. But equally, it's not about how much money you spend. Man United spend more than City, and we're 4th, 4th, 5th because we don't have the structure or the manager in place. And as long as they get that appointment, whether it's Gerrard or whether it's Nagelsmann, Graham Potter, I'm just throwing names out there. We don't know. The thing is, as well, we don't know who's going to be popular in 2 years' time. You know,
that's true.
I was saying, remember Eddie Howe 2 years ago was the Graham Potter of now. It was oh, look how good he is, look how amazing he is, and then suddenly it went out of fashion. He's doing a great job at Newcastle. I think he'll be one to watch going forward with their budgets. But yeah, I think Gary Neville's kind of off there. But you also made comments, Gary, about Man City, and these were like powerful words as well. And he said that Man City became Deloitte's richest club in the world. Deloitte, obviously, the viewers that don't know, a financial consultancy, the richest club in the world this week. He says this can't happen without extortionate exaggerations of sponsorship deals. Man City can't earn more money than Man United, Liverpool, Barca, and Real Madrid. It's impossible. Do you think he's got a point there? I mean, we have seen reports of I mean, the reason they got investigated under FFP and they got found innocent because the evidence was time barred. So they had the evidence that broke the rules, but it was like 2 or 3 years out of date. It couldn't be used anymore. It was like a 5-year time barring. Do you think Gary Neville's got a point that they're inflating their income to be able to maintain the level of player and squad depth they've got? Or do you think this is a little bit of bitterness from a United legend and a United fan seeing the blue half of Manchester take over?
It could be that, if I'm honest. But, I mean, I can only speak for myself. Personally, I've looked at Man City, and I always found it weird how they didn't have to ever really sell players, you know? So when I heard Gary Neville's comments, it did make me raise an eyebrow. That they're able to keep buying and adding to the squad. But unlike other teams that do focus on net spend, and I mean, Chelsea have been one of them, we've flourished with net spend in terms of the way that Marina's done transfers at the club. I don't see that at Man City, except for the last one that I saw, Torres leaving the club. Apart from that, they just don't sell. So I'm thinking, where is all this coming from? And how is this being cleared? You know, how is this getting the green light? And when you hear about the FFP investigation and all of that, it did act a little bit like, okay, yeah, maybe they're getting protected here. Maybe they've managed to find a loophole. Maybe they've managed to dodge a bullet. But yeah, seeing Gary Neville's comments definitely made me think, especially if we're talking sponsorships and we're going in that direction, it is a possibility.
Yeah, and I've never been someone that's criticized Chelsea's money or City's money, because I feel that when Chelsea was spending in the early years of Roman, it was within the rules. You created the loan structure that generated new income that, again, wasn't against the rules. It was smart accounting. But there's all these different reports, and I remember when the Etihad Airlines took over, and I don't remember the figures as of now, but I was still working at Barclays then, and one of the sort of senior analysts in my team sort of reading the paper about this big sponsorship deal, and he laughed. So we laughed about it, but this is fraudulent. And I said, what do you mean? He said, they don't even, because this company, he just basically rolled off these numbers about their turnover and their profit. They can't afford this sponsorship deal. He says, where are they generating this money from? And he said it doesn't make any financial sense. And obviously the FFP investigation kind of uncovered that they weren't really paying money in. It was all being bankrolled from elsewhere. And then there's this in the article that a journalist, Raj Cohen from the BBC, has kind of put out after quoting Gary Neville. He attaches this front line from this article that speaks about another Man City sponsor with no staff, no active products, and being run out of a mailbox in London. So it's sort of millions of pounds worth of money being pumped into Manchester City out of a business that has no staff, no products, and doesn't have an actual working address, as it were. And I think these are things that football needs to look at, because I'm not bitter about what Sheikh Mansour has done at City, but those sponsorship deals have to be right. And I say that because Newcastle are now in a situation where this is why the Premier League clubs are pushing for rules to come in that sponsorship deals have to be in line with market value. And the point that's being made is this: we work as content creators and influencers. We're all at different levels. If I suddenly got a sponsorship deal to advertise something on my Insta with 5,000 followers, and I was being paid more money than somebody like Conor McGregor, someone like Chunks, someone like, I don't know, Poet, who have got hundreds of thousands, millions, and in McGregor's case, tens of millions of more followers. If I was being paid more than them, something's off. They would never pay somebody with my level of viewers more than somebody with more viewers, followers. Same with football clubs. Man City do not have anywhere near the same global fan base as Barca, Real Madrid, Liverpool, and Man United. So how are they landing sponsors that in some cases are worth tens, if not hundreds of millions of pounds more? It doesn't compute. And I know City fans don't like that challenge, but there's something, and I say this to a lot of City fans, like, you just want to be mindful that these rules don't come in and then the rug gets pulled from underneath your feet. Like, I would be demanding my club did this fairly, because maybe you win a few less trophies, but at least you can maintain your progression. If suddenly the rules change and you get outed and there's 2 or 3 of these sponsors that suddenly are not allowed to pay you money anymore, you can have these big bills that you can't pay. Like, it is a concern for me to see it, because I never felt like Chelsea cheated financially. These stories about City make me really uncomfortable. They do. And especially as the Premier League clubs are trying to get a rule put in place now that where that the sponsors have to be in line with market value. I just want a bit more of an investigation done into this. And if City have done nothing wrong, then I'll take back all my words and say, look, fair enough. It's just there's so many of these articles, so many of these reports. It just doesn't feel right to me, you know?
I mean, it's a big allegation. I mean, to have a sponsor that's, being ran, especially from no official address out of a mailbox, because it's clear at the moment, and I say at the moment, I stress at the moment, Man City, you're correct, don't have the reach globally like some of the other clubs do. Will they have that in 10 years' time? I would say maybe, for sure, because you're going to get a new generation of supporters coming through, and you're going to get, people that are turning 18, 19, who have only grown up seeing Man City at the top, in the same way that I grew up seeing Man United at the top. And you go previous to how, Liverpool at the top and all of that. At that point, globally, I think that's where attention will start really coming in, and Man City will begin to grow properly globally. But right now, it's not there.
Yeah. And Man City are a big club. Man City in 2002 sold around 1 million shirts, which is a lot of fans. Okay, they've got a lot of fans. So their sponsorships are going to be big. To put that into context, Dortmund, 1.2 million. Man United, though, just under 2. So Man United sold around double the amount of shirts. So the point is that alludes to about double the amount of supporters. So when it comes to a company, if you're a legitimate company and you're going to sponsor Man City or Man United, I'm not saying United sponsorship deals are going to be doubled, but you've got double the fan base, therefore more reach. You've got Real Madrid sell 3 million shirts a year. They're 3 times bigger in that regard. Bayern Munich, 3.2 million. Liverpool, 2.4 million. This is from 2001, so things can change. Man United has probably skyrocketed because we sold a lot of shirts with Ronaldo signed, to be fair. Yeah. And this isn't a dig at Man City. It's just about this needs to be looked at, because I know for a fact that Man City fans do not want to win trophies through inflated means. And I'm not talking spending money that's yours on players. All big clubs have always spent money. Man United have, Liverpool have. Look how much money Spurs have spent in the Premier League era and won nothing. They all spend. These clubs all spend. But it's just, if these deals are inflated, and if it's really a fake company that's been set up by a backer of City to pump an extra 10, 20 million pound a year into the club, that isn't fair for me by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it needs to be looked at. Gary Neville is a Man City hater, so Gary Neville cry more, is what this City fan has said, which is fair. And by the way, 1 billion shirt sales is not small. It puts them number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Puts them the 10th biggest club in the world in terms of shirt sales. They're not a small club. Like, they sell more shirts than Chelsea sell 1.3 million. Because they sold more than Arsenal in 2021. They're not tiny, but Gary Neville does have a point there. Jason says, Terry, everyone knows that City is doing to fund their players. It doesn't take a maths or accounting genius to realize that the sums don't add up. Yeah, I think that makes quite a bit of sense there. It makes quite a bit of sense. There we go.
It goes to show as well, at the highest level, you truly never know what's really going on, in various areas. But realistically, no one is 100% clean. No one. I don't believe anyone is.
No, and I agree. I remember once Chelsea. I swear you bought David Luiz for 50 million. He didn't do very well. You sold him for 35. He did brilliantly, and you bought him back for less than 35. Yeah. And I remember looking at it and thinking, that doesn't make logical sense. How can you be like, no, you sold him for more than you bought him after he flopped, and then he did brilliantly, and you bought him back for less than you sold him. I remember looking at it thinking, how is that? I was like, there must be some clever accounting going on behind the scenes here, because that don't even make sense. You know what I mean? That was a weird one to me. And look, I'm sure United have done stuff. I'm sure everybody has done things. And I just want to see this sort of stuff be kind of investigated, really, and make sure that people aren't cheating. I think that's not a fair, and if it ends up being my club gets dragged into it, then fair play. But yeah, it's a little bit off key for me.
It's something that I think we all wish for, 100%. But when you look at it realistically, the people doing the investigating are probably aligned with dodginess as well. You know, you look at the way that FIFA and UEFA and all those scandals, and that's at the highest level of the game. You know, so if you're coming in between anything lower than that, you're gonna find something.
But that's also true in the sense of it's so hard to like make clubs accountable when the governing bodies investigating them are worse. And that's the one thing I'd say in defense of all clubs, like the people governing them. You know, it's like the whole Super League thing.
Yeah.
I'm not against it. Now that the rule, I'm not against it anymore. Now they're saying there could be jeopardy. There could be jeopardy. The only thing that put me off it was the jeopardy. And the reason I'm not against it is because UEFA are only annoyed because they didn't think of it. Like UEFA are only annoyed because if they lose out, it's their money that's going to be dissipated. We had a gal come on here when you guys won the World Club Championship, and he tried to play it down, and he quoted something from FIFA from decades ago where they said they see it as a friendly. But that was because FIFA were annoyed that they didn't own the competition at that point. As soon as FIFA took ownership of it or joint ownership of it, suddenly, this is a very prestigious, very important. It's almost like UEFA. If UEFA and the Super League came to an agreement where they merged together, everyone everyone who's been against it at UEFA would be on side. All the TV companies connected to UEFA would be on side. It's like with Gary Neville again. I'm not annoyed at his comments about the Super League, but would he quit his Sky job if Sky win the rights to show it? I don't think he will. So therefore, I thought about this as a content creator. Would I not cover the Super League games? No, I'm covering them. Therefore, I have no moral standpoint to like be against them. Do you know what I mean? And I have taken receipts on a lot of YouTubers like I wouldn't cover them. I'm not that I'd have a go. I'd just make a funny video about you said you wouldn't cover it, and now I see you doing match reactions and previews and
imagine,
the rest. But there we go. Super League will kill football, mate. They said that about the Premier League. To be fair, they said that about the Premier League that it kill football, and it's thriving really financially anyway. But there we go. Younes,
I mean, sorry, really quick one. Talking about the Super League, I don't know if you've seen it, but I came across Thogden's video yesterday, and it was done as an April Fool's. But it pretty much gives you an indication if this were actually a real thing, how would it look like? And it was really, really well done. So I mean, I look at it and I think, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. I don't want that.
Yeah, listen, I kind of like how things are. Like I've seen that video now. Actually, I'll go check it out once we're done here. How would it look if it was back? I'll go into him and his dad. They were nice guys. I met them at the awards evening. Very, very good people. I'll go and have a look at that later. I kind of, if it happens, I'll watch it. The one fear I have with it is that what I love about the big games is that they, as in European teams playing each other, is they come a little bit few and far between.
That's exactly it.
It could become a little bit monotonous. What I would like to change is the Champions League, but they want to scale it up and make it bigger. I actually want to make the Champions League smaller. So I kind of want the big teams playing each other from the beginning. Because I don't know about you, often I cover all the Premier League teams in the Champions League on the channel. And there are some games where I'm watching them and I'm like, this is an easy win for Chelsea or an easy win for City. No one really cares about it. It's boring. Content-wise, it's fine. But from a spectator, I'm like, I'm so bored watching Sheriff play Man City and get beat 3-0, 4-0. It's almost, I wouldn't mind like small groups to begin with, but maybe you only have two teams from each. Like when I was younger, two teams from each nation go in, but you're in really tough groups. You get to the knockout stages sooner. So you have slightly less games, but all the games are big. Like when Man United won it in 99, we had Bromby in the group, to be fair, but we had Bayern Munich and Barca and United in a group. And then it went straight to the quarterfinals, and we had Inter followed by Juve, followed by Bayern Munich again.
Yeah.
Every round was amazing. Now I feel like even, it sometimes takes to the quarterfinals or semifinals to really get excited about games. And I don't know. I think that's what I would do to change it. I'd make it smaller. I'd make the Europa League bigger, as in better teams in it. So there's actually two really good European tournaments on at the same time. I would like to go backwards rather than... I'd like to go backwards to go forwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But
I mean, for UEFA, that's just not the case, because for them, as I've said previous, their main priority is more money.
Yeah,
and that means, more games, more revenue, more TV coverage, more, just more. Whereas, yours is less is more. So yeah,
Yeah, a little bit feng shui. That's the way I look at it. Feng shui, the UEFA tournaments. But there we go. Younes, absolute pleasure having you on Straight Facts today, mate. It really, really was. Definitely got to do it again at
100%.
some point. Viewers, make sure you've smashed the like button before you leave and you subscribe to the Football Terrace. We've got more content out later today. Me and have hope on hot takes later on today, where somebody claims that Bukayo Saka is a young Lionel Messi. So come check that out later. No one from the Terrace. It's a hot take. Come check that out later on tonight. Until next time, everybody, take care. Goodbye.